YouTube channel. I am in a different space than my previous video because we have officially moved to our first station. My husband graduated boot camp about a month and a half ago. We moved here about a month and a half ago, and we are officially all settled in, and my husband is at work right now. So I thought I would sit down and finally do another YouTube video. I know it's been forever since I did my previous video. I did that about halfway through boot camp, and then things just got hectic with work, packing. Found out I had a gallstone, so I put myself on bed rest because I was in so much pain. And then my husband graduated and we moved here. We did some unpacking. He was put on quarantine twice because somebody in his graduation ended up testing positive for boot camp, and then somebody within his work facility ended up testing positive for COVID. Did I say they tested positive for boot camp? They tested positive for COVID. So I've been spending a lot of time with him. We've been unpacking and settling in, getting the necessities for what we need for our first place. And so it's just been kind of crazy. And then my mom came to visit, so of course I had to spend time with her on her visit. So now he is officially back at work and I have time to sit down and record a video. This is actually my third time trying to record this video. The first two times the lighting was bad and I just was not happy with it, so I thought I'd sit down and record it again. This little setup is just for the sake of this video. This is actually my TV stand, and I took little decorations from my dining room setting, and my husband just got me these flowers yesterday. He had them delivered to me while he is at work. So that's kind of where I've been, and I really do not want to take that long of a break between videos again. I know I don't have any subscribers and nobody watches my videos, but I'd like to stay consistent and put out good content and just actually make something of this channel, at least try. So for this video, I'm just doing a continuation of my last video. My last video was about boot camp and surviving it as a spouse. I was only about 3 to 4 weeks through boot camp when I recorded and put out that video. So now that I am all the way through boot camp as a spouse and my husband's graduated for about a month and a half, I am going to try to give you all the information that I have about boot camp as a spouse, and hopefully it can help you out in some sort of way. Boot camp just kind of feels like a blur to me now. Those 2 months are just like all crammed together. It's just all a blur now. I'm going to try to give you some information that I have. So I am going to break up the weeks of boot camp and just give you what I think you should know as a spouse, what it's going to be like. It's a little different right now because of COVID, so it might be different once your spouse goes to boot camp, if COVID is finally out of the way, or maybe this is exactly what's going to happen for you guys too. Boot camp has actually changed since my husband's been in boot camp already. Right now, boot camp is put on a complete halt because of COVID on the base. So those recruits that were only supposed to be there for 2 months are now going to be there for like 3 months. It kind of really sucks for them. I feel terrible for them. So this is what boot camp was like for me and my husband from September to November of 2020. So like I said in my previous video, week 1 and 2 are called ROM. It stands for restriction of movement. So for those 2 weeks, you are just kind of stuck in a square with your rack mate, kind of just like you're in quarantine basically, just to make sure that you're free of any symptoms, you're free of COVID, so they can get into actual intense boot camp training. I kind of covered week 1 and 2 in my previous video. I have a little bit more information now that I was able to talk to my husband face to face and hear about his experience at boot camp. So a Coast Guard boot camp company is made up of about 90 to 120 recruits. It varies. Each company is a little bit different. You lose kids, you gain kids throughout the whole course of boot camp because of all the reversions that can happen. But for those first 2 weeks, they break up the company into maybe 3 or 4 groups. So you're in a group of about 30 to 40 recruits. It just depends on the size. And each group is separated into their own hall or on different floors of a hall. I don't know exactly. So within that hall, the group is separated. So you're in a square with another recruit. It's your rack mate. You do everything in that square. You eat, sleep, study, learn. You're in that square the whole day, besides for about 2 hours you get some low physical training. Nothing crazy, but they're just making sure that everybody is safe from COVID. But still, for those first 2 weeks, it still is boot camp. You do still have to maintain military bearing. You still have to use military terminology. You have to treat everybody with military bearing. You're still in boot camp. It's just a quarantine version of boot camp for the first 2 weeks. So once you get into week 3, it's officially intensive Coast Guard boot camp training. It's real boot camp now. The company officially forms. You kind of have a small ceremony to officially meet your company commanders, even though you have met them the first 2 weeks of boot camp. It's just now officially the start. After that little ceremony, you are already training. So my husband said that week 3 was a hard hit. The first 2 weeks he was feeling a little homesick, but he was getting adjusted to the new lifestyle, and then week 3 just hits you really hard because it's actually boot camp now. But even though week 3 was a hard hit, he said that week 5 and 6 for him were the hardest. He said that's when he was feeling the most homesick and kind of questioning his choice to join boot camp. Every single recruit goes through that feeling and that thought process. It happens at different times for different recruits. For my husband, he said it was week 5 and 6. Because it's been a couple weeks since you started the intensive part of boot camp, so you're just kind of getting burnt out, you're getting tired, it's been a couple weeks, you're stressed out, you're overwhelmed. But let's back up a little. So week 3 is the start of the intensive part of boot camp training, and then week 4 is just kind of a continuation of it. Each week they have different topics that they're learning on. You will kind of get a little summary of what they're learning each week and what they're doing each week if you join your company's Facebook page. They do post little updates every single week, so you kind of get a gist of what they're doing for that week. So week 4 is the week that I stopped receiving letters from my husband. I received 1 letter each week up until week 4. Week 4 was the last letter that I received. And that is because my husband just ended up not having the time to write to me anymore. I still sent him letters and he still read my letters. I said it in my previous video that every single Sunday they get divine hours. I found out that the divine hours are in the morning. I think it starts maybe around 9:30, but I know that it ends at about 1:30. So they get about 4 to 5 hours of divine hours Sunday morning. That gives them time to go to church, do some extra studying if they choose to, clean up their area like I said previously. So I found out what exactly they're responsible for maintaining a clean area. Their bunks, or they call them racks, you might have seen them in boot camp videos if you did watch some. Where their mattress is, below it is actually a compartment that they can open up. They put a little lock on it and they open it up, and it has all of their belongings in it. They also have what they call ditty bags, or laundry bags, that they hang from a hook on their bunk bed. So the company commanders will randomly do rack checks. They'll go through the whole hall and just pop up their racks and make sure that everything is clean and organized within their rack. If it's not, obviously they get in huge trouble for that. So they have a specific way they have to fold things and organize things, and they have specific spots for stuff. So like they have a personal bag where they get to keep their letters and all their supplies for writing letters. If you shove a letter inside your rack, or you put something inside your rack that's not supposed to be there, you get in huge trouble. So the company commanders literally inspect the tiniest little things. The most minuscule little things they can get in trouble for. All their shoes aren't lined up the way it's supposed to be. So they have a lot of anxiety and pressure of making sure that everything is perfect. So they have that just sitting on them the entire time. So my husband spent a good portion of his divine hours making sure everything is organized, all of his uniforms are ironed, everything is just perfect in case there is some sort of rack check. He spent most of his divine hours studying. So they have some sort of whiteboard in their hall, and every single week they write down all the information that they need to know for that week. So my husband would spend a lot of time just making sure he has all of that information ingrained in his brain. It's information like who's the regimental duty officer of the week. There's Coast Guard history they have to know. There's just little facts here and there that they have to know that changes every single week. So my husband wanted to make sure he knew all of that, because when they're in the galley, they are tested nonstop. So the galley is the cafeteria. It's the most stressful environment throughout all of boot camp, my husband says. So in the galley, the recruits are literally running through the galley with their trays to make sure that they don't get seen, or a company commander doesn't stop them to ask them a question, because they'll just be walking through the galley with their tray of food, and the company commander will just decide to pick him out, ask him a question. So it's just super stressful, my husband says. If you watch boot camp videos and they show you an overview of the galley, you'll just see recruits walking as fast as they can, nearly running just to get through so they don't get called on by a company commander.
Right now! Right now! Aye, aye, Galley! Aye, aye, Galley! Aye, aye, start talking! Yes! 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 Cape Harris, all Savior, we're going to our God. By the Italian officer as Lieutenant Junior reserve battalion officer. He belongs to you.
And my husband actually has some of the most hilarious stories that happen in the galley. Some involving him, some involving other recruits. It's so funny. I was laughing my butt off with those stories. Those stories were my absolute favorite. Actually, my absolute favorite stories was always involving this specific company commander. They have about 4 company commanders. So they have like the lead company commander, and then they have 3 that are underneath that company commander for that specific company. So there's one company commander that is my absolute favorite from my husband's company. He is the funniest guy I've ever heard of. I wish I could meet him because he is so freaking funny. And all of the funny videos that my husband tells me from boot camp all involve that company commander, and most of them happen within the galley. So it's just really funny. So that's why I stopped receiving letters, because my husband just did not have the time to write me letters. Every single night they get 5 minutes to read letters, but they can't write letters Monday through Saturday. But then Sunday is the time that they get to write letters. But my husband just chose to stop writing me letters, which I am completely fine with. I never once got mad about it during boot camp. I got a little sad, but I knew that he was going through basically hell. So I completely understood, and I never got mad about it. So just prepare for that in case you stop getting letters. Don't worry, because everything is fine. If something bad happens, you will get a call. They always say no call is good news. Keep that in the back of your head. So don't freak out if you stop getting letters from your spouse. So week 4 was just kind of like the same as week 3, and then week 5 and 6 is what my husband said were the hardest for him. But the exciting part of week 5, it's probably, I would say it's the second most exciting phone call that you'll get in your life. So in week 5 is when they typically find out where they're being stationed after boot camp. They typically find out in the middle of the week, but each company's a little bit different because their timeline is different. So my husband found out Thursday of week 5 where he's being stationed, and then they get to call one person to let them know where they're being stationed. So I received the call on Saturday, October 31st, Halloween, from my husband of where he's being stationed. When I received that call, I just started bawling my eyes out. It was the best phone call ever. It's the first time I heard his voice since he left for boot camp. They do get to call you once they arrive at boot camp. It's a 20 to 30 second scripted phone call. You can't say a word. They just read off a script to let you know that they made it to boot camp safely. And that is the last time you hear from your spouse until week 5, which was awesome. His voice sounded completely different. It was so weird. It didn't even sound like him. Your spouse's voice will be so scratchy, so rough, because they are screaming 24/7 in boot camp. If they want to respond to their company commander, if they want to talk to them, ask them a question, answer a question, they have to scream. They call it sounding off, and they have to scream on top of their lungs. If the company commander thinks that you're not screaming loud enough, you get in trouble for that. You have to scream as loud as you can. So his voice was beat up from that, but it was just so great to hear his voice. He was bawling his eyes out. It was so adorable. But like I said, it's only 5 minutes, so it feels like 5 seconds. That phone call felt like 5 seconds. There is a tip that you can use if you feel like it. I did use it, but it ended up not working. Because it's the first time that you hear from your spouse, your mind is going to be going crazy. You're going to be overflown with all these different types of emotions. So when you are talking to your recruit and they tell you where they're being stationed, maybe other information, maybe if they have a little bit of information on travel situations or living situations, but once you hang up that phone, you might just like completely blank out and forget everything because you were going so crazy with emotions talking to them. So a tip that the admin of my company's Facebook group did say was that you can take a piece of paper, write down the questions like station, question mark, travel, question mark, living, question mark. Just little things that you want to make sure that you are asking your spouse in case they don't tell you, or if they do tell you, go ahead and write their answer right underneath it so you don't forget. Typically calls start Friday of week 5, but they didn't get to call their family until Saturday of week 5. It all just depends on their schedule with training, so it can differ for every single company. Also, they will be calling from their cell phones, so expect to see their name pop up on your phone. By the way, that Facebook group for your company that I mentioned in my previous video and now I've mentioned in this video was so helpful. I could not have survived boot camp without that Facebook group. It is hands down the most helpful resource throughout your entire boot camp. So if you don't have Facebook, make sure just to make an account to join your company's Facebook group. And I actually met other girlfriends and wives of the recruits of that company through that Facebook group. We actually ended up creating our own group chat on Snapchat. So we were talking nonstop, talking about boot camp, talking about other things. It was just great to have friends to go through this with. It's really awesome to have them throughout boot camp. And not only is it awesome to have them there during boot camp, but now I follow them on Instagram, friends with them on Facebook, friends with them on Snapchat. So now that boot camp's ended, I can still see my husband's shipmates. He can see his shipmates from boot camp going on, all taking different paths in the Coast Guard and starting their careers. So it's really cool just to follow along with their career as I'm with my husband and he's going on his own career too. It's really cool because they all started together. So week 6 is an exciting week too. It was one of the hardest weeks for my husband, but it was super freaking exciting for me. I wasn't receiving letters, but I was still receiving phone calls. So the week 5 phone call was the first phone call, and then starting on Monday of week 6, the company gets admin hours. So they go to a computer lab or something of that sort where they start booking and planning their living situations for their first station, travel situations for after boot camp, and maybe even insurances or doctors, just getting everything set up for their life after boot camp. So within those admin hours, if they need to call their spouse to update them on living situations or travel situations, if it's just something that you have to contact your spouse for, you can, but you cannot call off your cell phone. These calls will not be coming from cell phones. They will be coming from military phones on the base. So like I said, admin hours started on Monday, so admin calls started on Monday, but I didn't receive a call all that week until Sunday of week 6, right before Monday of week 7. So that was my first admin phone call from him. And these phone calls are not relaxed phone calls like week 7 Liberty phone calls will be. These admin phone calls are considered business phone calls. So they have to maintain a monotone business-like conversation with you. It can only be about travel plans or living situations, stuff like that. They can't ask you really how you're doing, how's home life. They can't ask you those kind of personal questions. It can only be about what they're working on in the computer lab. So they get a few different times to go to that computer lab all together as a company. But if your recruit, like mine did, have to go back to that building and work more on travel situations and stuff like that without the company, they can. So I did get several admin calls from my husband from Sunday of week 6 to the day before graduation. I got about 5 or 10 phone calls from him, those admin phone calls. I was obviously never able to call him. He only called me. And these phone calls came from either an unknown number, a restricted number, or a full phone number with the area code 609 because that's the area code for Cape May. So those phone calls really don't have a time limit on them. If they're in the computer lab with their full company, there's only a couple phones in there, so the company forms a line for the phone. So my husband could be on the phone with me and there could be a huge line, and there's a company commander or somebody supervising all of the phone calls to make sure you stay on track and don't talk about anything you shouldn't be talking about. So my husband could feel a little rushed sometimes. So those phone calls aren't the most exciting, like emotional phone calls. It's just business phone calls. So those phone calls could last about 10 minutes. They could last 15 minutes. They could last 30 seconds. They can last 2 minutes. I've had phone calls last all of those amount of times. So just be prepared for those and always answer an unknown number or restricted number or any number beginning with 609. So those are the admin phone calls that begin week 6, could go to the very last day of boot camp. But the most exciting phone call, week 7 Liberty, is the most exciting phone call you'll get. Liberty is basically free time. Before COVID, the company would get Liberty Saturday of week 6 and it would be on base Liberty, and then Saturday of week 7 it would be off base Liberty. With COVID, they don't get their week 6 Liberty, they only get their week 7 Liberty, and it's only on base. So with this free time that they get to go to the Coast Guard Exchange as the company, and the Coast Guard Exchange is basically just a grocery store or a party store on base. So they get to go there, spend whatever they want to spend, get all of this junk food, and then they all go together to the clubhouse on base, and it's basically kind of just like a little hangout room, seating for everyone. They get drinks there and stuff like that, and they get to sit down and talk to you. Again, the time frame for this is a little different for each company. My husband's Liberty hours started at 12:30 and then ended at 7:30. So we got quite a bit of time to sit down and talk. He of course made all of his rounds to all of his family members, gets to call them, gets to update them on how boot camp is going. They get to do whatever they want on their phone. So that is another thing to look forward to. So there's quite a bit of phone calls towards the end of boot camp that I wasn't aware of. Going into boot camp, all I knew about was the phone call for their Liberty hours. I didn't know about the station update phone call. I didn't know about the admin phone calls. So all of those were quite a bit of a surprise to me. I learned all of that in the company Facebook page. So even though I stopped getting letters from him, I started getting tons of calls from him. So even though hanging up that phone call at the end of their Liberty hours is completely heartbreaking, just keep in mind that you literally have less than a week until graduation. Liberty hours are Saturday of week 7. Graduation is Friday of week 8. You have less than a week until graduation. So for this time between Liberty hours and graduation is a time for you to finish up packing, start making poster boards if you're picking them up from the airport, start making decorations if they're coming home and you wanna throw a congratulations, you graduated Coast Guard boot camp party. This is the week to get excited, where you're literally in the home stretch. It's almost over. Enjoy it. So graduation, super freaking exciting day. The most emotional thing. I've never been so proud of anybody or anything in my entire life. So before COVID, you could fly out to Cape May and attend the graduation in person. And it breaks my heart that we can't right now. But it is live streamed on Facebook. If you don't have a Facebook account, just create one for Coast Guard Boot Camp, because they only live stream it on the Cape May Training Center Facebook page. That is different from your company's Facebook page. This Facebook page is just for the general training center. Anybody can go like this page. They will live stream it on there, so make sure you like their page. You'll get a notification every time a live stream starts, so you'll get a notification for your company. Just make sure you know your company's name and what day they graduate. And make sure you are sitting down in front of your phone, your TV, your tablet at 11 a.m. because that's when it starts, and it lasts for about an hour. It ends at about noon, and then they grab all their bags, they hop on a bus at about 12:30, and they drive to the Philadelphia airport, and they fly to wherever they're being stationed, or if they do get lucky and get approved leave days after graduation. Before COVID, every single recruit would get 5 days of leave to go home and visit family, and then they would get leave days put on top of those 5 days according to how far their station is from Cape May. So because of COVID, those 5 days are taken away from everybody. You have to request those leave days after graduation. It will get looked over by the Coast Guard and either get approved or denied based on the situation, what's going on, why you need those leave days. Luckily, my husband was very fortunate and got those leave days approved, so he was able to fly home. So he flew from Philadelphia to Detroit, and we picked him up at the Detroit airport.
Hurry up before I get towed away. Aw, look at you guys. Look at you, you look so good.
And he was able to see family and spend time with us for a few days. And thank goodness, because he was able to help me load all my crap into a U-Haul, pick up the U-Haul with me, and load it up and drive it to our station. If those leave days weren't approved, it would be a disaster. I would either have to drive myself to our station or fly to our station and have military movers come pick up all of our stuff and move it for us. With military movers, you don't get it like the very next day. It takes them like maybe a month. It could take up to a month for them to move your crap and for you to get it at your new station. Hopefully you get lucky and those leave days get approved for your recruit. One last thing I want to actually say about the graduation. If you don't know what a drill team is, I'm sure everybody knows, but if you don't know, YouTube Marine Corps drill team. Every branch of the military has their own drill team. I hate to say it, but the Coast Guard's drill team is not the best. So if you want to see a really cool drill team, YouTube the Marine Corps drill team. It's phenomenal. It's clean. It's so crisp and clean. It's the most satisfying thing to watch. For boot camp, for graduation, you can volunteer to join the drill team just for graduation. It doesn't mean that's the rate that you're going to go into after boot camp. So my husband did raise his hand when they asked if anybody wanted to volunteer to be on the drill team. And I was so excited when he told me that, but I didn't know how freaking awesome it was going to be until the graduation started and you just saw the drill team marching out. If my husband wasn't on the drill team, I wouldn't have thought that it was as cool, but being that I knew he was in there and I could see him, it made the whole drill team routine 1,000 times freaking better. It was the coolest thing. So I think that covers everything that I can think of. So, summary, join the Facebook page for your company. Get excited for all of the calls that you're gonna receive. Write your recruit letters, but don't be heartbroken or angry if they don't write you back. Don't be worried if they don't write you back. No call is good news. Make sure you like the Cape May Training Center Facebook page too, and get ready for graduation. I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it so much. I've recorded several videos already, but I've been so unpleased with all of them. So hopefully I like this one. If you have any other tips or advice, things I didn't cover, or if you have any questions, go ahead and comment it all, and I will see you next time. Bye.